right, everybody. Welcome to the Blazer Victory Podcast, episode number 31. This is John Duncan, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Steve Irvine. And Steve, buddy, really a tale of two different games there in San Antonio against UTSA, but unfortunately, both games UAB just didn't shoot the ball well. Fortunately, we got the win Friday night, but Saturday, UTSA was shooting the ball lights out and just not good for our Blazers.
Yeah, getting split on the road's always good. I mean, you gotta look at some bright sides of it. I'm not overly surprised by Saturday, and we've talked about it, but it's Keaton Wallace and Javon Jackson's final game. Senior day, or I guess they had senior day festivities. I don't know if they did or not, but no matter if they did or didn't, it was their final game at home, and I've seen a lot of senior days and a lot of great players finish their career, have their last home game. And I've seen a lot of things like that. I've seen a lot of, teams come out inspired and players come out inspired. And I'm not overly surprised. I mean, I am surprised that UAB didn't play better defensively. I thought there were some breakdowns defensively, but great players sometimes, when they're rolling like that, they're hard to stop. And those guys are, both those guys are hard to stop because, you play good defense on them sometimes, and they just hit shots. So not that surprised by Saturday. And like I say, getting the split out of it is, that's not bad. That's still a pretty, their record might not show it as much, but that's definitely a dangerous UTSA team when they're playing well, offensively. And so, it is what it is. You gotta bounce back from that Saturday and learn from that. And I know it killed, Andy Kennedy and the coaching staff to, give up that many points, a team that prides itself on grinding its way through and playing defense. So, right. They're going to have to, they'll come back inspired.
For sure. Now, I guess what we'll do is we'll go ahead and break down both of these games in San Antonio, and then we'll get you guys ready for Denton, Texas and North Texas series coming up this weekend. And then we'll talk a little Conference USA tournament and seeding impact of what this North Texas series has on the impact of seeding for UAB in the Conference USA tournament. But we'll start off on a good note. Friday night, UAB was able to get the victory in San Antonio over UTSA, 64-57. Quan Jackson went off for 19 points, just another solid night for Quan Jackson. And Tyreek Scott Grayson had 12 points, so both of those guys played really well. As I mentioned earlier, we didn't shoot the ball all that well. Luckily, Friday night, UTSA did not shoot the ball well either. UTSA ended up shooting the ball 38.3% from the field and UAB 41%. UTSA was 26.1% from the three-point line, UAB 25%. That shouldn't surprise you. And more importantly, too, UAB was able to force 19 turnovers to UTSA. Really felt that the full court press gave UTSA a bunch of fits that game. And just overall, other than the shooting woes, UAB played well. They just, got the W, which is the main thing, 64-57. UAB was trailing at halftime. They would trail in both games at halftime. But UAB, came out of the locker room inspired and was able to get a victory in San Antonio. It looked really well doing it, especially in the second half. But as I mentioned, Quan Jackson, just another heck of a night for him. 19 points, just great from the field. Mike Ertl had 11 points, very quiet 11 points. He was 4 of 13 from the field. But the team played really well. UTSA, you mentioned earlier about Javon Jackson and Keaton Wallace. Javon Jackson had only 12 points in that game, shooting 5 of 13 from the field. So UAB did a pretty good job on him. But Keaton Wallace did get 21 points Friday night, going 8 of 15 for the field. So we knew, and we told you guys going in, both of these guys, this is going to be their senior weekend, the last two games in the Convo Center at UTSA, and they're very strengthy shooters, if they get rolling, they get rolling. And, we'll talk about Saturday in a minute, which, Javon Jackson and Keaton Wallace both got going Saturday. But Friday night, Steve, I felt overall UAB did a good job.
Yeah, and you talked about those turnovers earlier. 10 of those turnovers were by Javon Jackson and Keaton Wallace. Both of those guys had 5 turnovers each, and so I think that was a big part of it. Javon Jackson didn't shoot well, but he only took 6 threes, which for him is
right.
is usually the first 10 minutes, and so I think they I mean, it was a defensive, certainly great defensive effort by UAB, and but you looked at that, and I looked at that Friday night, and after watching it and looking at it, and was thinking like those guys struggled, those 2 guys struggled, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go, it's they're going to be awful inspired after struggling, and want to have 2 straight games of that, and unfortunately I was right on that, and I thought that the bench points were big on Friday night. 16 bench points to 5 for UTSA. So
right.
that was a big difference. And so nice win on Friday. Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't carry over.
Right, and just very quickly on Friday, UAB actually led by as many as 10, just starting off the game strong, starting off the second half strong, and UTSA only led by as many as 2 points Friday. Now, Saturday, as Steve just mentioned, was a completely different story. It was definitely the Javon Jackson show and Keaton Wallace show on senior night for UTSA. Javon Jackson ended up 32 points from the field, and Keaton Wallace had 22 Saturday as UTSA defeated UAB 96-79. I guess the only bright spot for UAB was the play of Jalen Benjamin. Jalen Benjamin had 21 points, 7 of 15 from the field. He had a pretty good game and also hit a pretty awesome longer than half court shot at the buzzer at halftime to cut the lead to or the deficit to just 9 points. But it's like Steve mentioned. We knew that both of these guys were going to be trouble in Javon Jackson and Keaton Wallace, and unfortunately, they were. They had Javon Jackson didn't have a great game Friday night, and he exploded Saturday, shooting 13 to 21 from the field, 6 of 10 from 3-point. My gosh. And it just, I don't know. But like I said, good for Jalen Benjamin finally, having a really, really good game. But other than him, just really nothing going for, UAB. UAB, we've said all along, all year, this is not a great shooting team. And, they shot the ball 43.1% Saturday, which is better than their 41% Friday. But UTSA shot the ball 57.6%, including almost 60% from the 3-point line. So when you're not shooting good, when you're not shooting well, and the other team is shooting well, and more importantly, shooting the 3 well, you're probably not going to win many ball games. And, we didn't. And, the free throw line struggled. We struggled from the free throw line again all weekend, really, going 15 to 22.
Year.
All year, yes, which is so crazy.
That's just a bad, that's been a struggle, and it's kind of, it costs you games. Not necessarily this one. Obviously what, the free throws weren't what cost you this Saturday game. There's a lot of things that happened. One thing that I thought happened, with defensively with UAB, and especially in the second half, this happened. They just couldn't keep Jackson and Wallace particularly, and some others from penetrating and dishing. You
right.
Look at UTSA had 21 assists, and 12 of those came from Keaton Wallace and Javon Jackson.
Wow.
7 by Wallace and 5 by Jackson. A lot of that I thought was in the second half, just breaking down and getting easy dunks and layups, and really struggled defending them.
Yep.
And then you're looking at the turnovers. Those guys who combined for 10 turnovers the night before end up with 1 turnover each, in the second half. And I think that to me that speaks volumes on the lack of defensive success that UAB had, in that game.
Right.
Just it's just one of those nights. I mean, really, there's, you're right. I mean, other than Jalen Benjamin, playing well, there's really nothing you can point to and go, oh, well, that looks good, or that looks good. There's just nothing, just
Right.
nothing there that looks good. So, but hey, it happens, and like I say, it happens on a lot of times. It happens on the opposing senior night or senior day or or whatever it may be, and you can't let it linger, because if it lingers, then you now you learn from it, but
Right.
you can't let it linger.
Right. Well, for Saturday, UAB led by as many as 8, but UTSA led by as many as 22 points. So just not a great night Saturday in the Convo Center at UTSA. One more thing I want to hit on for the UTSA series that kind of surprised me, Steve, is just UAB getting out-rebounded both games. I know that part of it, goes to Kennedy wanting to play a little small ball, but still, I mean, there were points that, Ronji Gordon and Trey Jemison were out there, and UTSA was still getting rebounds. So that's something that UAB is definitely going to need to work on, because UTSA is not a great rebounding team. In fact, they're towards the bottom of the conference in rebounding. But I just definitely saw UAB struggling rebounding both nights. Yeah, both nights got out-rebounded by the Roadrunners.
Yeah, that was a surprise. Yeah, and that can't happen against that team. I mean, even though that's an athletic team, and I mean, I think a lot of times teams that shoot shoot as many threes as they do, there are a lot of long rebounds and that type of thing. But you can't, you just can't. That goes just. I mean, that comes down to effort, and you just can't have that happen.
Yes, definitely. Well, UAB does have one final regular season series in Denton, Texas this weekend. UAB travels to take on the Mean Green Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Time and Saturday at 4 p.m. Central Time. Now, both of these games will be televised on ESPN+, but as always, you can listen on Jocks FM2 100.5 radio to listen to David Crane and Murray Bartow on the call. These guys, I mean, this is a good ball team UAB is going to play. North Texas, I mean, this is a team that, they've only lost once at home this year, and that was to Louisiana Tech, who UAB lost to twice this year. I mean, this is a good ball team. This is going to decide who gets to get that bye in the first round of the Conference USA tournament. That's next week. But let's go ahead and preview this matchup before we get into seeding for the tournament. North Texas, I mean, they're the number one team in Conference USA in field goal percentage, shooting the ball 49.2%. They're number 2 in the conference in three-point percentage, 38%. But they're number 9 in total scoring in the conference, just averaging a little over 72 points per game. So, Steve, let me know if I'm wrong, but just going off of that, what I'm seeing is that North Texas, they're a patient ball team. They look to get the good shots off. They don't rush things. And when they do get good shot opportunities, they tend to make most of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so, and I think they're, it's a little bit a mirror with UAB. I mean, they're number 2 in the conference in defense behind UAB, and so I think that it's a team that wins off their defense, and really, really tries to turn defense into offense, and I mean, I think that a lot of their success too is, they pushed themselves, in the non-conference, and I think UAB had the misfortune of losing some games. Kentucky,
Right.
who obviously is not their Kentucky of usual, but still it's Kentucky and Georgia Tech, and some things, but North Texas played at Arkansas, they played at Mississippi State, they played at West Virginia. Didn't win any of those games, but didn't get blown out really in any of those games. They lost by 15 at Arkansas, but kind of pushed himself early, and then in conference, I mean, they had to go to UTSA, they had to go to Old Dominion, they obviously played Louisiana Tech at home. Then they had to go to Marshall. And they were supposed to host Western Kentucky, but that one got postponed or canceled eventually. Right. And so it's a team that's had some tests, and they're also a team that's had obviously past success and have some veterans on there. So they're good. They're good. Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, they're not necessarily the prettiest team the way they play, but that's okay. It's kind of like UAB. I mean, they grind their way through things. I think Hamlet's probably as good as any guard in the conference. I think James Reese is an excellent defender. Zachary Simmons, a 6'10" guy inside, is had a lot of success, and I think he's a 4-year starter there. And Thomas Bell is a good defender inside, and so I don't know. It's a tough team and a tough-minded team, and it'll be like I say, it's kind of a mirror image of each other, going into this thing, and so it'll be a difficult weekend for UAB.
Yes, going back to Hamlet, him and Reese, as you just mentioned, Steve, great guards. And in this league, in Conference USA, they're, seems to be all across the board, great guard play, but especially with Hamlet. He literally just went off for 28 points at Marshall this previous game. And before that, a series in Houston against Rice, he went off for 30 points. So very talented guard, and Reese is just as talented too, averaging 11.5 points a game. As I mentioned earlier, this team shoots the 3-point ball well. Both of those guys, Hamlet and Reese, definitely contribute to that 3-point shooting. One thing.
I think real quick on Hamlet, I think Hamlet's going to be a little inspired too with, he had 28 against Marshall in their second game, but if he would have had 30, they would have won the game. He in the overtime there, he had a shot he probably should have hit, and he's probably going to hit 9 out of 10 times. He's going to hit, and maybe even rushed the shot a little bit, and maybe could have got to the rim instead. So. As great as he was in that game, I'm sure, and I'm sure he's I know he's a great competitor, and I'm sure he's in his mind, he's thinking, man, I should have hit that shot, and so that's going to be a little inspiration for him, as great as he was. He had 6 or 7 threes in that game. My goodness, he did everything. He did everything he could to win the game, but I'm sure in that competitive mind, he's saying, man, I should have hit that shot to win it. So.
Right.
You kind of have that out there too. One thing. Just looking at, I didn't see this till now, but Louisiana Tech held him to 7 points in the first game and 4 points in the second game. So
wow.
Yeah. So
let's watch those games, or hopefully our guys are watching those games and seeing what they did.
They will. They are. And now he only played 21 minutes in the second game, so I don't know if it was foul trouble or what. Yeah, he had 4 fouls.
Yeah.
In the game. So well, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry, he fouled out. He fouled out in the second game. So
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So now first game he held him to 7. He didn't have a foul, so it wasn't foul trouble. So. But anyway, I just think, like I say, I think as competitive as he is, and he's gonna look at that game against Marshall and say, I should have hit that shot. So he's coming in motivated.
Yes, and as mentioned earlier too, North Texas plays extremely well in the Coliseum too, where again they've only lost once this year so far against Louisiana Tech, and I feel like they only lost either once or twice last year, and I think that was against Louisiana Tech both times, or at least one of those times as well last year. So, again, North Texas, they're 13-7 overall, but they're 9-3 in Conference USA play. They did just lose in Huntington to Marshall, as Steve just mentioned, but a very close game, 73-72, and they actually kind of blew Marshall out the first game, winning by 12, 77-65. One thing before we end the talk on North Texas that I wanted to bring up, Steve, is I don't think that North Texas rebounds the ball particularly well. They are tied for 11th in Conference USA, just averaging 33.7 rebounds per game. Hopefully, UAB can take advantage of that with Trey Jemison and just keep him out of foul trouble and just try to get a bunch of offensive rebounds because, as we know, we don't shoot the ball particularly well. So we're going to need to get a bunch of offensive rebounds to have a chance in this ball game. Expect both of these games to be low scoring, kind of grinded out games, very physical games here in Denton, Texas. I mean, kind of will be similar to the Louisiana Tech North Texas series, that they played early in February, and both of those games are low scoring, where they both schools split the series. Louisiana Tech winning that last game 57-55, but expect something very low scoring and just hope that UAB can get some offensive rebounds and try to get some second chance, shots and just play good defense. Definitely watch the guard play for North Texas with Hamlet and Reese and just see what happens. But I guess was there anything else, Steve, before we talk about seeding?
I mean, the only thing that worries me again is, you have James Reese, senior, Hamlet, senior, Zachary Simmons, senior, so you have three key guys, and then some other guys, J.J. Murray, a couple other guys that are seniors also. So, you have a group of seniors that have done some really good things there, including, win a championship. And so, you have a pretty special group of a group that have kind of helped transform or turn that program around a little bit, playing their final 2 home games. So, that's that's not good. Now again, with the rule of this year, and seniors, if the seniors can come back or what, I mean, I don't know who's deciding they're going to stay or come or go or whatever, but they're still, these guys are playing their final game. So I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of having to play against those guys on those days, but it is what it is. You got to go play.
Yeah, that's right. You got to play the games. Well, let's go ahead and just talk briefly about the Conference USA Championship Tournament that starts next week. So as of now, if it ended now, UAB would actually have to play in the So let me backtrack. Conference USA did just recently announce that all Conference USA teams are going to make the tournament. So what they'll do on Tuesday, March the 9th, they'll have 2 preliminary play-in games where the last 4 teams in the standings will play against each other. Then Wednesday, March the 10th, you'll have basically your first round, I guess, after the preliminary games. And right now, unfortunately, UAB, if things ended now, would have to play in on Wednesday. Now, what would happen for it to get a first round bye and not have to play until Thursday? UAB would actually need to sweep North Texas this weekend, win both games to get that first round bye. Right now, North Texas has a better win percentage. So if North Texas just split the series, North Texas would get the bye over UAB due to the winning percentage, and Louisiana Tech would get the bye as well because they're giving the byes to the top 2 teams on the East and West division. So right now on the East side, Western Kentucky and Old Dominion are getting the first round bye, and on the West right now it's Louisiana Tech and North Texas. But if UAB can somehow get 2 wins in Denton, Texas this weekend, then UAB would get a first round bye and not have to play till Thursday, March 11th. Now I know that's a tall task. This is this is going to be at North Texas, and normally we say, hey, if you can get a split on the road series, that's great. But really, UAB needs to get a sweep in Denton to try to get that very important first round bye and not have to play until Thursday.
I mean, it's doable. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't, I mean, going into it, it looks, it's a huge uphill battle, but got to take care of Friday first and see what happens, and it's doable. I mean, I think obviously there's going to be some. You can't shoot poorly from the free throw line. Got to find a way to shoot well there. have to play well defensively and have to find a way to make some, hit some shots and have to turn that defense into some points. And, like say, I mean, I think in some ways, UAB matches, even though North Texas is a better team than UTSA, no doubt.
Right.
But in some ways, they match up a little better against them than they do. Those two guards. Throwing the ball in from all over the court. In UTSA. So I mean, it's doable. I mean, if you're ask me and you're being honest about it, I don't necessarily see it happening, but
Same.
Who knows? I mean, who knows? I mean, you go out and you play. If UAB plays well, if they play 2 games up to, plays as well as they can, or plays well, not necessarily as well as they can, but then they got a chance. I mean, this is not, you don't go into it and go, well, they don't have a chance. I mean, sure they have a chance. I mean, you're gonna have to play, and they're certainly capable, and see what happens. No, I mean, I mean, I think at this point, if you're being honest, I mean, I think the 2 best teams in the West, I think are Louisiana Tech and North Texas.
Right.
But go prove us wrong. I mean, that's the great thing about it is we can talk all we want, and they can talk all they want, and everybody can talk all they want, but it doesn't really matter. Talk doesn't matter.
Right.
You go out and do it. Who cares? If I sit here, that's what I never understood why people get so upset over predictions. I mean, I just never understood. I mean, I can sit here and talk all I want about how, well, I think North Texas is better. Then I don't know that they can win 2, all that kind of stuff. But who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares what I say? Who cares what anybody says? Go out and do it. What matters is what happens on the court or field or whatever sport you're talking about.
Right.
So who cares what somebody predicts? No, I'm not saying you don't use that as motivation, and as a coach and as a player, don't use those predictions or whatever you might want to say and help it motivate you. I believe in that, but ultimately it doesn't matter what anybody thinks going into it. What matters is what happens on the court. So
right.
Sure, they're capable of it. I mean, but they're not capable. It's not going to happen if they don't go out and play well. This isn't a team. North Texas is not a team, especially on their home floor. It's not a team that you can go out and play poorly and still win the game.
No.
You just can't. So got to go out and, like I say, you got to hit free throws. Got to find some way to generate some offense, and hopefully hit some shots, and got to play great defense, and we'll see what happens. I tell you, I like I like that you're going in there with Andy Kennedy as your coach, because I think he's the kind of guy that in series like this can get a team ready and get a team going. So we'll see.
Definitely. And Steve, do you want to remind our listeners what month we're in now?
I don't even know. What are we?
March,
we're in March Madness, baby. Yeah.
Yes.
these days I don't even know what day it is, but March Madness is hit us, and let's go. Hopefully it'll be a fun March.
Let's go. Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while, and the thing is, there's nothing. There's very few things in sports that are as fun as getting your team in that tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I just think about Louisville, and that game in Louisville, and beating Iowa State, and I mean, those are just such special times, and even when you lose the first round, it's just special to be in that thing, and now it's really special to win a game or 2 or more, but it's just special to be in that thing. So I'm looking forward to, whether it be this year, another year, whatever it may be, getting back in that thing.
Yes, make it to the dance. Well, all right, guys, we'll see what happens in Denton, Texas this weekend, and we'll be back to recap that and get you ready for the big Conference USA tournament next week. But just make sure, as always, you're helping us spread the word about the podcast. Get the podcast out to other Blazer fans. Just tell them about us, and just make sure you're following us on Twitter at twitter.com/BlazerPod. But on that note, we'll see you guys next week. Go Blazers.